Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about how to help someone who's struggling. Join us as we share how and when to help, what is the right kind of support, and how do we struggle with doing this in our own lives. Let's get started. Listeners, today we are doing a part 2. We are talking about how to help someone who's struggling and how do we provide the right kind of support. And if you want to hear part 1, you can go back and listen to last week's. And we do recommend that before you listen to this one. So we're basing these discussions, these 2 episodes, on the book Let Them by Mel Robbins. This book is a New York Times bestseller, and it was written to help give people the tools to create a better life and better relationships. And you do not need to have read these chapters in order to enjoy the episodes. So we go into plenty of detail, no need to have read, but if you have read, then you might have some opinions that you are saying to yourself, yeah, I agree, or no, I don't. But we'd love for you to join us as we share our thoughts on the Let Them theory and how we're putting it into practice. And the Let Them theory is just a step-by-step guide on how to stop letting other people's opinions, drama, and judgment impact your life. It's about how to let others do what they will. So last week, Julie and Mindy, we talked a lot about how to help someone who is struggling, how we maybe have tried and failed, or maybe what are some success stories, or how we feel about withholding help. But this week, we're going to talk about how do you provide the right kind of support, because I don't think that it's always immediately evident.
Yeah, last week we talked about how love feels like help and how that is true, but sometimes help is not helping. So we talked about what that looks like, and that sometimes our help can just further or like prolong suffering or prolong getting to the bottom before somebody is willing to make changes that allow them to help themselves.
Right. And these 2 chapters are on the hard things. They're on, like addictions and harmful behaviors and destructive behaviors. And we're talking about adult problems. And so that really is the difference, is we're not talking about children that live in your home that are under your purview and protection. These are full-blown adults who are now choosing very destructive patterns. And what can we do if we're in a place of influence or if it's somebody that we love?
Yeah. And we're also trying to apply it to other situations too. I think we can extrapolate it to other situations as well.
Yeah, she talks about some serious situations, but I know even last week we talked about things that have come up with our young adults and our adults. Sometimes addressing those issues earlier can maybe prevent them from escalating into something that's more serious later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
Because we do have young adults. Like, that's really the people that we can talk about. We have kids that are fully adulting, kids that are still in the middle, and I still have one at home. And so, I think our listeners, like, that's our perspective, and that's really all we can talk about because that's all we know.
So how to provide support the right way. Julie, do you want to give us a little summary on chapter 17?
This was a much shorter chapter. She really kind of focused on one thing primarily at the beginning. And she said, with adults, one of the biggest levers that you have to pull is what you're willing to spend money on. She said, unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional financial support. In fact, she said often it means removing financial support, not to subsidize somebody's life that's harmful and destructive. So that's kind of where she started out. And then she went into talking about putting conditions. When you help someone, that you need to put conditions on that help and what that looks like.
I loved just the beginning part of this because I think I have run into this with 5 kids who have gone off to college and they think they are independent and I shouldn't really have much of a say. And it says, when you are supporting an adult, one of the biggest levers you have to pull is what you will spend money for and what you will not. later on in the chapter, it says, and this doesn't even necessarily have to apply to struggles. This is just if you're at all supporting someone. Later on, she says, if your parents are paying for your therapy, your rent, your education, your phone bill, or any aspect of your life, I have news for you. They get to vote on how you're living your life. And I totally agree and was glad that she said it, because I feel like sometimes I sit back in wonderment and think, why aren't you saying anything? Like, you still have influence. You have financial influence. Don't just pass
Right.
that up.
Yeah,
Well,
she said
these
when
are
you pay for parts of someone's life, you have a right to an opinion. And she said, and if the person doesn't like it, then she said, if you really want independence, then prove it to me. Like
you
Yeah.
pay.
take responsibility and pay. Yeah. And then I won't be able to say anything.
So, okay, this is the crux of so many midlife conversations amongst parents and listener questions that we get. What do you pay for and when? Because nobody knows. Like, there is not a particular set of rules or instructions that come along, with midlife parents and figuring out, what do we pay for our kids? When do we let go? When do we push them out? When do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? And so this is a lot of discussions. And I know Bryce and I, we haven't necessarily done it exactly the same way with all 4 children. We have tried, but I don't know about you guys. But this is a difficult situation. Is money and kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say I have always been very hesitant to play the financial card. Like, I don't just use that as like a hammer above their head. Like, I've never said, like, if you get a tattoo, I'm not paying for your college, or something that is so, in my mind, out of whack. Okay, maybe I didn't want them to get a tattoo. I'm not going to not pay for their college because of that. Like, I don't use it as a constant hammer over their head. But there have been things, not about ever paying for their college, but like, I pay for their car. So I have a vote on whether you want to drive it 8 hours to Florida if I don't think that it's necessarily going to make it, and I might have to come and repair something 4 hours down the road. Like, I get a vote on whether you drive in the snow or not, because you know who's going to pay for it if you hit somebody? Me. Like, I get a vote on things that I'm going to end up responsible for.
That's why it's so hard when they go to college, like that parent rights are just gone, like looking into grades and whatever. It's like, well, I'm paying for this. Like, why not? Yeah, it makes no sense that you're just expected to dish out the money with no accountability.
Right.
Yeah.
So we always had our kids sign those. Yes, we can look into that, and I mean, we kind of did say, I know that was the tattoo issue was kind of a big deal with John and me, and we just kind of, I don't know, tried not to be harsh in that way, but just did say, while we're supporting you and paying for your life, we do have some expectations of you. Like, these things can wait till you're on your own. A little softer way of saying it, but we did kind of have those expectations of laying out like what we expect of you. Um, like, because you're kind of we kind of saw it as you'd be spending our money on those things that we didn't approve of. So
Right.
we did cross that line. And but you're
Right.
right, it does feel weird, like hanging money over their head. It's a little
Right.
awkward. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and families do it different ways. I know Bryce and I hand over responsibility for our children's lives earlier than honestly most of my friends. And it's worked for our family in the sense that it has actually protected our relationship in a way because we don't give an opinion. If they're paying for things, we step back and it becomes more about how can we influence or help. And they do get to choose then to continue the relationship because it's not about money. Because money can come in and mess with the relationship part. So even though like the school is like, we're not telling your parents any information about you because you're over 18, the kid is like, I'm choosing to tell my parents about this
Mhm.
because we have a relationship together.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it says that if you give money without conditions, it will lead to massive resentment on your end. Unconditional love does not mean unconditional financial support. And so I think sometimes we equate love with money, just like we were equating in the last chapter, love with help. Equating love with money, that's not always true. Sometimes fostering someone's independence is actually the more loving thing to do. That's why there is no hard and fast rule, because you have to look at your kid's stage. You have to look at the level of responsibility they've shown in the past. You have to look at your relationship. You have to look at all the things, but it's not just a blanket equation that the more money you give, the more loving you are.
Right.
Right.
And, I'm just overhearing adults and people in life throughout the years. I've heard of so many families where the parents, like elderly parents, have given a lot of their kids' inheritance away to one child.
Really?
Like where one child was just like always needing help. And then there was just nothing left at the end because they helped this adult child way, way into the adult years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of sad. And the other siblings could totally see that this was not a good thing, but that for some reason the parent
Right.
couldn't,
Right. I mean, you can look at the Bible and see that very clearly where that happened with Joseph and with his brothers. And, it's just, you see that relationships and money and how you navigate that, it's messy and complicated. And there's not enough books written about it because nobody knows how to do it the right way. I mean, what is the right way? And I think we all just hope to have a good relationship with our children. We want them to be financially independent. And to me, that's successful. Like, that's how I base that. Yeah.
It's actually been a huge relief to me, and I'm really proud to get to that point. And I think it actually makes the relationship better with each one of my kids that has become financially independent. Like that is a huge boost to your relationship, actually, to not have money in between you anymore. And so I definitely think that some parents, maybe they think they're going to still have some control by still holding some purse strings, but your relationship is probably actually going to improve if you just go ahead and cut those and have a relationship free of money problems.
Well, you feel less like a parent once those ties, the financial ties are gone.
Right. You can get into the friend category.
Yeah. Yeah.
But getting back to like struggling and supporting people, she says that especially for parents of adult children who are struggling, it's often the very last lever that is pulled. And I think it's understandably the last lever that is pulled. Like you're going to try everything possible. Nobody wants to withdraw support monetarily if there's any other option.
Well, especially if it means your child might be homeless or, like those. I don't even know if I can say how I would react in that situation.
Right.
Because I haven't faced it, but that would be a really, really hard place to be.
She talks about that rock bottom for somebody. She said, and that's on the road to healing, is you hitting rock bottom. Like that has to happen. And then the person that's been supporting or the person that's loving or maybe even financing you, that person, the supporter person, hits rock bottom also.
Yeah.
And it's that point where you feel like you have tried everything and maybe financed a lot, maybe given a lot. And you get to the point where nothing is working to get change in this person that you love. And she says, basically, you've tried to shield them from all of the negative consequences. And you hit a point where you realize this isn't helping them. One of the things that she said, this Dr. Waldinger says, you owe people love, acceptance, compassion, but you do not owe them money. And so it's making that transition of, okay, what can I give that will help create change while not financing their destructive behaviors? And so giving us then some practical guidelines of what you can do on your end.
Yeah, I like the practical part where she said providing money with specific conditions is support, and it can look like this. Like, you can live here if you're sober.
Mhm.
I'll pay for therapy as long as you and your therapist agree to a monthly check-in with me. I'll pay for tuition as long as you get a 3.0. I'll pay your rent, phone bill, and car payments if you go to inpatient treatment for your eating disorder. Like, I'll do these things and you do these things.
Well, that shows it's a two-part, both of you are working because they have to be vulnerable and willing to show their progress, owning up
Mhm.
to the behaviors and all that. So that shows a willingness on their part because I think without the condition, they may not ever be willing to change.
Mhm.
Why
Right.
change when it's so easy to live like this?
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And she actually really lays it out. She says that if they're not going to hold up their end, then you maybe should consider withdrawing all financial support. And I think that can be really hard. She says they're not on your phone bill. You're not paying their rent. You're not giving them logins for streaming accounts. You're not buying their groceries or paying their Ubers. And this last line in particular is hard. And you may have provided a guarantee on the lease on their apartment, but you're going to have to be willing to have that hit your credit. And I'll tell you, listening to Dave Ramsey, it was always do not co-sign. There is
Mhm.
no situation in which you should ever co-sign. And I actually got away with not co-signing for like 4 of my kids. But one kid could not get an apartment. Like, the apartment just doesn't even offer the lease if you don't co-sign. And she's a responsible kid, and I don't have reason to believe that she's going to leave me with the bill. But I was very nervous to go against what I feel is a very good principle and co-sign.
Right.
I guess if she just totally flaked and went off the rails, I might have to be willing to let that apartment go. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? Like, parents can find themselves in
Yeah.
these situations where, hey, that's going to really affect me too, you know?
This
Mhm.
is a really tough issue, Marie, and you and I have talked about this because when you have a kid in college, you will face this. If there's not enough campus housing, they have to move off campus. They always, almost always,
Mm-hmm.
say you have to have a cosigner. And that's one of our, I'm going to call it a rule that we have in our family is we do not cosign. And multiple children have navigated this. And I'm telling you what, we are sweating it every time, praying for an apartment, helping them search for an apartment. And we have not been in that position yet where it's come down to like
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to have a place to live or you have to co-sign. The Lord has always provided a place so far. And so Marie, I mean this is where the rubber meets the road. Financial institutions getting loans, getting housing, it is not set up in favor of children being independent. It is not. They
Mm-hmm.
they all want a cosigner, they all want a
Mhm.
guarantee from the parent,
Is
and
that
it's
new since prices have gone up so high? I mean, I don't because I haven't experienced that with my kids' rent.
this is new, I think, since the real estate market crashed in 2008
Mhm.
and financial institutions no longer loan money to everybody at high, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for for the full price of things. I think that financial institutions, when they took that hit, things changed at that point. You
Yeah.
can no longer get loans or things like that as easy as you used to be able to. Okay, so dealing with the harder parts, like these situations, Marie, that you mentioned, you read that paragraph about, giving conditions on the financial help to someone that's really struggling, with keeping a job or sobriety or staying in school or things like that. And then if they still choose to not do it, allowing that child or person to struggle. And then she literally wrote the words, "They're going to hate you." I was like, "Okay, so just so you know what to expect, if you have been helping someone financially and you do get to the point where that rock bottom hits and you realize, like, something this hard line's gonna have to be drawn," she says, "They are going to hate you. They will likely spiral in the beginning, But when they refuse to honor the conditions upon which your support was given, you must be the adult.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes on, she's like, let them struggle. Let them violate the terms of the support. She said it feels cruel and it's really hard to get to this point. If you're at this point in the relationship, to be able to do this. But she said you can no longer finance their destruction,
Right.
basically,
Mm-hmm.
of their life.
Yeah, I'm always amazed to read like an advice column or to hear somebody in a conversation say, I'm so frustrated that my child doesn't have a job. But then you find out that they're paying for their rent and their phone bill and their car. Well, why do they need a job? Like, if you're already paying for them, they don't have any motivation to get a job. Like, I don't understand why that doesn't seem obvious. Like, they haven't said that their child has a reason they can't have a job. They're just frustrated that their child seems unmotivated and isn't going out and get a job. Well, they need some reason to get a job.
I know. But this is really hard for some parents. If you have money sitting in the bank and you see your kids struggling, everything in you from the point of their birth until this point has been to grow them and love them and support and encourage. And it's really hard to get to the point to be able to see, like, oh, my kid's 25 now. Oh, my kid's 30 now. And like, they're still needing me to a point that's unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to say, I have money in the bank and no, I'm not going to give it to you. Like that,
Right. It's like,
you know what I
that's not
mean?
the reason you can't help them. Yeah. Or won't help
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
She gives an example, Mel Robbins gives an example of her own life where she and her husband were in a lot of financial debt. They were $800,000 in debt, and her husband's restaurant was really struggling. They went to his brother, the husband's brother, and said, could you loan me some money? And he said, I'm sorry if me not giving you this money is the reason why the business fails and you go bankrupt, but I won't bail you out. You've got to figure out how to do this yourself. And I think that that's really hard to say to somebody. And she said it turned out to be the best thing that his brother didn't loan money. It forced her husband to hit rock bottom, to really evaluate whether this business was even a viable business and what they should do next. And it led to other things, like he had developed a major problem with alcohol, and he recognized that through this process. Like, she said if his brother had loaned him the money, it would have just prolonged the devastating situation they were in. And when his brother said no, he had no choice but to rescue himself. That's rock bottom, and it changes your life for the better, because when you finally hit it, you connect with something solid inside yourself, the resolve to change.
Yeah. She said by refusing to loan him the money, it communicated, I believe in your ability to fix this. It communicates confidence that you can do this.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that when the brother said no, when they hung up the phone, I'm sure Chris and Mel didn't have nice things to say about the brother right away. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one's going to say, oh,
yeah.
he's such a wise man. Thank goodness he didn't give me that money.
Thank you for letting me struggle and lose my business. Deal with my alcohol tendencies.
I'm sure the brother felt like super uncomfortable at Thanksgiving. It was like what we talked about last week. Sometimes you can be providing help and you have to put on a good front, like, yes, I think this is the right thing to do, even though you hate seeing the person suffer because of it.
I mean, who wants to see your kids suffer? None of us.
Yeah.
Not any of us.
Right.
And at the same time, we want our kids to be able to have a good relationship with us and, be an adult and adult on their own, financially speaking. But it's hard. It's hard to let people you love struggle.
Yeah. Now, Julie, I don't know, and I didn't ask you about this ahead of time, but this next session, how to create the best environment for healing. This section I felt didn't necessarily have to do with money. It had to do with people who are in a really hard situation. I thought about your grieving, and it says, maybe don't just keep asking those people, what do you need? Like, they don't know what they need. And did you
Oh.
feel like that, like when you, and maybe you even still feel that way now, like after John passed away and people say, how can I help? It's like, you don't even know.
Yeah, this came with her just a backstory. She gave her story about postpartum depression, that it was very, very severe, that she couldn't even be left alone with her child and all. And she said her parents came in, friends would come and sit with her, friends would come and do her laundry, bring meals. They would plan fun outings to get her out of the house. They came and filled the fridge with food, gave care packages, sent her playlist of encouraging music, took the kids, all of that, and she said, no one just said, "What do you need?" Because she said, they just did it because let them doesn't mean just leave them alone. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm gonna let them
Mhm.
they're
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I did identify with this in that you don't know what to tell people that you need, and you don't want to burden anyone. Like, well, I can't come have you do my laundry. That you would never ask somebody that.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know. I did have a friend at one time that did ask people those things, and I remember thinking that is so strange.
Mm.
Come weed my flower beds, come do my laundry. Can you clean my car? Because I just don't have the energy to do it. And at the time, I honestly just didn't understand it. And now I do. I still don't think I could ask that of people, but um, I don't know, it's just made me more aware of just doing things for people,
Mhm.
because that is the question you get the most is, "How can I help?"
Mhm.
So,
You know?
Julie, what would you say you would do for someone that has gone through what you have gone through?
One of the most meaningful things is just, like, people checking in regularly, but not requiring anything of you. Like, "Hey, I'm thinking about you," just a text, a scripture, whatever, praying for you, you know, and this isn't so much now, but early on, like now I would just maybe send them something, or, "Hey, can I take you to lunch?" Or, "Hey, can I bring you a meal?" Just I know one friend, I didn't say, "Can I bring you a meal?" I remember saying, "I want to bring you a meal. What is the best night?" It's almost like the way you word it can help them accept the help better, instead of saying, because she could have easily said, "Oh, I don't need that. I'm
Mhm.
okay." But I just said, "I'm gonna bring you a meal. Is Wednesday night or Thursday night better?"
Mhm.
And she
Mm,
accepted. Um, so I think there's ways to almost be insistent,
Mhm.
and
okay.
it's like you're making it easier for them to
Hmm.
accept.
Mhm.
Because it's just awkward to come up with, "Oh, yeah, I do need this, and here it is."
Mhm. Well, and I think some of those things probably seem tangential or maybe not important. I can remember my mom was helping someone whose family member had died, and my mom was like, "What can I do?" Like, she was kinda staying there, and she's like, "Oh, my roses, like, no one's
Mhm.
taking care of my flower beds in a couple weeks, and could you just go out there and do something with them?" And to the outsider, you might think, "What do you even care about your roses if someone just died?"
Yeah.
But your other parts of your life still go on. Yard work is still a factor of life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cleaning is still a factor of life. You still have to eat.
Yeah, you don't want everything else to just fall apart. The landscaping roses thing is a good example. It's like, well, you don't want that to die too.
Mhm.
Like somebody has to
Yeah.
maintain this. Like there's going to be a time when you're going to enjoy that, but somebody's got to maintain it till you get there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um,
She gave a good list in the book, and, if it's okay, I could just read, like,
Sure.
mhm,
Mhm.
kinda what she says. She said, "Here's some good examples of things you can do. Show up at their doorstep, drop off dinner, help them clean up their apartment, fill their fridge with healthy food, walk into their bedroom and pull the shades open and lift up the windows to let the air in, do their laundry, make a playlist of great songs, send them podcast episodes that will help give them hope, Send them care packages filled with thoughtful and nurturing things, or buy them a digital picture frame and load up photos so in their environment they are constantly reminded of happy memories and people around them. Thought
And I
that was
think
a
you have to know the
yeah,
person. I think you have
you
to
do.
know the person. There's
Mhm.
probably got to be a level of closeness there, before some of those things would.
Yeah, don't invade somebody's bedroom if they're in the bed and like open up
Yeah,
their window if you
like
don't know
opening up the
them.
shades, like that seems a little weird to me, but
Right, right.
Mhm.
maybe if it's a family member.
That's right. Yes.
Mhm.
Don't come touch my shades.
No. She said that's too much.
And I liked when she said, "Do this without expectations," like just showing up for people because they matter. Like they might not have the energy to keep you updated, maybe to thank you, And I've always appreciated that. This one friend that kind of texts me regularly, she was like, "You don't have to respond. If I don't hear from you, like it's okay."
Mm,
Because even that can be a weight sometimes. Like, oh, I've got all these people to respond to.
Mhm.
Um,
mhm.
I like this. She said ended that section with, "When someone feels loved, accepted, and supported, it's easier for them to believe in their ability to step back into life. Let them borrow their belief from you."
And then she goes into the summary after that statement.
Yeah, this is a little tangential because I don't think Mel has taken like much of a spiritual look into this, but I just kind of started thinking like, we talked about unconditional love, like that's what we've been taught godly love is. And then so like,
Mhm.
how do you know when to stop helping somebody? How do like,
Mhm.
um, questioning like why they're doing this or whatever it is. And, I thought about the examples in the Bible, like the rich young ruler. I mean, Jesus spoke truth. He gave an invitation to him. And sadly, the man walked away and chose his own way, and Jesus let him go. He didn't try to chase him down and say, "I'm gonna try to convince you even harder about this," like, "I need to talk to you more."
Right.
He honored his freedom to choose, even though he knew the choice was wrong, and, like, Judas betrayed him, but yet he treated Judas with kindness and love and support right to the very end. He washed his feet. He ate dinner with him, and then he
Right.
just let him leave. He didn't try to force him or manipulate the situation, even though he knew what was gonna happen. And I thought, gosh, Jesus was perfect and he could have forced obedience on all these people, yet he honored their choice for a path even when it was hurtful. And I just thought, gosh, that really spoke to me about learning to release people to walk their own path. That you can love, speak truth, invite, but you can't control, chase, or necessarily force obedience. And I've been studying with this group of women, and two of them have prodigal children, and she said something so profound, I was like, "That needs to be in a book." She and maybe it was, I don't know, but she said that she was talking to this friend, and the friend was kind of, like, losing her own faith, like, what
Oh.
happened? Like, how did this child reach this point and have this total change of belief system and all that, and she was kinda losing her faith, and my friend said, "You have to stay steady, stay strong in your faith, or where is this child gonna come home to?" Like,
Mm.
the prodigal has to have a place to come home to. And I just started thinking about I've seen a lot of parents that maybe change their core beliefs, adapt their beliefs to match their children's, kind of in an attempt to equate that with love.
Mhm.
And then it's like, where does the child have to come back to? I thought that was really profound because, that would be tempting to kind of just
Mhm.
maybe, change your beliefs, soften them up, or not live by your convictions or live by what you know is true to be more accepting of your child. I think that would be a real temptation in those situations. But I thought that was a profound piece of wisdom that my friend had, for her friend.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. I appreciate you talking about that, Julie, because that really is where we find our hope. And so, even as we're reading, these practical steps with Mel Robbins' book, it doesn't factor in God's miraculous healing and power, the power of prayer, and the spiritual aspect that the three of us do believe in. And so, yes, there are things that we see, there are behaviors that are difficult. And what to do when you have to say no, or what to do if you have to pull back financial support from a child. What do you do? Because you have all these feelings and emotions about that. It's highly uncomfortable. Your stomach hurts, you're fretting, you're worried. You have to do something with that to be able to continue to love and provide an atmosphere of love and shepherding and support in a home, as your kid chooses maybe a difficult path for a time. And so being able to run to God, run to the Word, have Christian friends, praying for that child, this is what we do. This is where we find hope. Otherwise, it really can feel hopeless.
Yeah, just trusting that God is at work. He always is, and that he's working in their lives, even when you can't see it, and that their story's not finished yet,
Not done.
They're in a process. None of us are done.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because when I read these chapters, I only think about them in terms of being a mom. So how much of our identity has been tied to being the one who solves problems? I think a big part of my identity is tied to that. And when I read them, I don't even think necessarily of my husband solving the problems. I think of myself solving the problems. Like I think of them calling me and saying, I have this problem, and then laying it in my lap. And then maybe I call Steve about it, but still they laid it in my lap first. So it feels more like my problem than his. I don't know how you guys feel about that in your household.
Yeah, I think we talked about this when we were talking about sleep one time, that moms tend to lose more sleep than husbands do over members of the family.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I don't know. I know that I'm kind of a recovering people pleaser. So
Mm-hmm.
I have struggled with carrying people's emotions over
Mm-hmm.
things,
Mm-hmm.
not even over necessarily like a behavioral problem or whatever, just emotions. Like if they're sad, then
Right.
I'm sad. If they're hurt, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm hurt. And it's just really hard to separate my feelings from theirs sometimes. And I've always kind of contributed this to being an only child because it felt like I carried a lot in my family because there was nobody to spread it out with.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, having my mom that I care for, I feel that weight, like it's all up to me. It's all up to me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I always think that it kind of stems from that. I don't know, but yeah, I do carry a lot of things emotionally for other people.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to say I'm a recovering person, because I recognize in the past this was part of my unhealthy choices. This was part of my getting healthy physically, was getting healthy mentally and spiritually. And this was a major, major part of the problem
Mm.
is that I took on those emotions and the fears and the worries of other people. And I have always been known as kind of the peacemaker and,
Mm.
like the fixer, the problem solver, like the empathetic one, the one to provide comfort if you're having a hard day. So to be able to separate myself from being comforter versus the fixer, um, you know, giving a hug versus I can heal you, like recognizing what my role is and what it's not. And so I still recognize that this is actually very unhealthy to take on the control of fixing things for everyone around you that you love. And I constantly, every single day and all throughout the day, still pray, Lord, help me fear you alone. Let me trust you with these people and these situations that I cannot fix and I cannot redeem. You are the redeemer. And I have to say that so that I continue to stay in the healthy, that is not my job category.
Mm-hmm. And I think you do a good job of that, Mindy. I always admire that about you. You seem to have good personal boundaries around that. Now, I can't see inside your mind, but when you talk
My
about it, you
heart
have
rate
good personal.
increases
Yeah.
telling you about that because I recognize this this was a problem for far too long, and I
Mhm.
have so much compassion. I do not stand in a place of pride in this. I understand how hard this is because I do it all the time to try to stay in a place of surrender.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, talking about relationships that may have suffered because of our boundaries, one question was, what relationship has suffered because you tried to save or shape someone? I don't know if my relationship with my second son has suffered, but it's been impacted. I think with my older two having gotten married while they were in college, like their last semesters, I never had to learn what to do with just somebody leaving home, but they're not going into someone else's home, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, what does that look like? And it sounds weird that, well, how come you don't just know how to do that, Marie? He's your third child, but I haven't had to do it before. So like, if they're not getting married, if they're just going to live on their own, I've had a real struggle with deciding how much input should I say? Because when they got married, it was fine. I didn't have to have any input because their spouse could just take care of it. But now I kind of feel like, well, I don't know if they know that, so should I say it? Or I don't know if they see that, so should I point it out? Or I don't know if they're doing the best thing here, so who's going to tell them if I don't? And it's just a
If you're not
hard.
paying for anything,
Well, and I
then you
know,
don't
and
get
I
to
do,
say.
but even as just like advice giving, or I
It's
don't know
hard.
who's going to worry about them if I'm not, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's been a new learning experience for me because I really did not have to experience that with my first two. Their spouse could worry about them. Their spouse could tell them when to get a haircut. Their spouse could tell them whether they should be spending money on that. Their spouse could tell them, to try out this new church. Their spouse could tell them that it's time to get the oil changed. Whatever. Like, that was up to them, and it wasn't any problem for me to step back. But with somebody who's 23 and has moved out and they don't have a significant other, it's kind of like, well, am I supposed to tell those things if they're not doing it? Like, if I've waited several weeks and it's still not being done, should I say it? I don't know. Like, it's a learning experience for me. It's something to learn. I don't know if other mothers have struggled with that or not.
Yeah.
Yes, other mothers do.
I think the rule is like unsolicited advice probably isn't what, like they'll ask when they want to know. That's kind of the way I've taken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally teased my 23-year-old son who's not married yet that I had to look at him and tell him if he had a hair sticking out of his nose because he doesn't have a woman to check him out before he leaves the house.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like
It's
those
something
kinds of
I
things.
know. So silly. Like, he's like, "Mom, why are you looking at my nose?" And he doesn't live with us, so like randomly, he'd be so
Mhm.
embarrassed. But he doesn't listen to our podcast, so I'm going to go ahead and tell this. Literally, he's like, "Why are you looking at my nose?" I'm like, "There's nobody else looking at your nose to tell you have a rando hair that you need to go pluck." I said, "This is something I do for your father, okay?" Who else is going to tell you that?
Yeah, it's just weird. And it might feel more natural, I still have two other kids after him that probably will not marry in college and will also go out on their own, and I'll probably maybe do a better job with them, but this is my first time to do it, so I'm floundering a little bit.
Right there with you, Julie. Julie, we need hope. We're all muddling through.
Mhm.
I guess because my son lives here, I probably overcompensate and don't say anything about anything,
Mm.
because I just want like, nope,
Mhm.
Yeah, you draw the line.
yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I don't mean like something I needed to step in. I'm just
Sure.
talking about personal appearance.
Yeah.
Hairs in the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna let him walk out with an eye booger on his face.
He did say he finally went shopping. He called me. He goes, "Mom, I'm on my annual clothing shopping spree." Like annual. I thought maybe it was biannual. I wasn't sure. And he was at Goodwill, and he was so excited that he had found this shirt, and so instead of saying it's about time, I was like, "Yay!" Go you.
Good job, Julie. I do have a humbling confession that goes along with this, and it'll be quick, but just looking at the 4 children that Bryce and I are almost finished with,
Mm-hmm.
the first 2 had a lot of attention, and they had a lot of help, and they had a lot of my time. The last 2 went a little more unnoticed because the first 2 were taking so much of my time and attention. The last 2 have handled certain situations a little bit better because I couldn't be there as much, and that is really humbling for me to say because I wanted to give them as much as I gave the first 2, but I realized my lack of attention helped them
Mm-hmm.
take responsibility for certain things, handle certain things. All of my kids are amazing, but I see where being more involved was a little bit not helpful.
Mm.
Mhm.
In some instances with looking at I'll say the first set and the second set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just to go along with that, like maybe the first 2 got like a lot more attention on the front end, but it seems like the last ones get a lot more attention on the back
Yeah.
end because when the older ones were that age, you were still busy raising younger ones, so your attention is very divided. Now, all your attention can be focused on these last ones in the back end, so they naturally get more of an eye. You know what I'm saying?
They do, but it's interesting. The first 2, for instance, I knew all of their teachers. I knew when
Mm.
assignments were due at school. I knew when they had activities. I knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2, I can't tell you all their teachers' names.
Mm.
They have
Mm-hmm.
always taken responsibility for their assignments because I wasn't hovering, and they have taken responsibility of their academics in a way that it's because I couldn't pay attention.
Yeah. I always thought it was easier with the last one to let go of all that, like,
Yeah.
it's gonna work out. I don't need to be
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
involved in all of that.
Nathan said the other day, "Mom, you never ask me about homework." I'm like, "'Cause you're doing it. I
Right.
don't, why would I harm you in that way?
Yeah.
You're doing great."
Let's talk a little bit about what does stepping back make space for? If you step back in a situation, what does it allow more room for in your heart, your time, your energy?
Well, I'm thinking of someone right now that has kind of stepped up and really embraced responsibility for an emotional burden. It's more like something that has come upon them, not that they brought upon themselves. And I don't know, I just can see that it's made it better for, like, everybody around them, um, and I think everything's gonna just be okay. Like, it's just a very comforting feeling to know somebody is feels like they have this, like they're just gonna do everything in their power to make the best of a situation and taking full responsibility. It's like a weight. It's a weight off. I think it's better. It allows you to focus on the things you really do need to be doing instead of worrying about something.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
it frees up lots of emotional space, I guess is what I'm saying.
Does.
Mhm.
It allows you to be more of a cheerleader, a hopeful supporter, like,
Mhm.
"I see this in you. I know you can't
Mhm.
see it in yourself right now, but I see this in you." And it takes away the fear of failure for, understanding that, some things will go your way and some things won't, but I see that this is gonna be good in your future.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it makes the relationship with the person improve too. They know that you're not quizzing them on something, evaluating them on something. That's not the first thing that comes up in every conversation. Like you're more free to just enjoy each other if you've
Right.
stepped back and kind of allowed some space and said, I don't know that I'm going to keep making this my problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So allows them to take maybe personal responsibility and then ownership.
Mm-hmm.
We the really giving them ownership or allowing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's an interesting idea. Love without control feels like trust. You have
Uh-huh.
to kind of say that a couple times to yourself. when you first have kids that are becoming adults, you fear not having control. Like you fear that if I don't have control anymore, I'm worried that they won't come around. We won't have a good relationship. They'll make mistakes. They'll do something terrible for their future. Like, I don't know. You fear a wide variety of things. I think as your kids leave, with the last ones, you realize that you are happy to not have control. Like your relationship improves the less control you have. Like you want to love without control. You want to just love and not have any of the parenting things in the middle.
It's a relief. It's a relief.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a hard place to get to, but you can really celebrate it when you do.
Yeah. So I would say like in this, there might be listeners right now that just sent kids off to college and they're like really trying to grasp at every little control, especially like even as they're about to come home for that 6-week break. And it's like, you can't tell someone else not to worry about it, but you can give them hope that someday not having control will feel like a blessing to you.
It's hard to know that. You're almost like holding your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you just have to somehow blindly have faith and walking through and get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And experience it.
It may come much later for some people. Like it won't be at the 6-week visit or at the 1 year. It could be it could be way into adulthood. So it's hard to, but it is about trusting them in God's hands and trusting them. You have to just trust your kid more about trusting them in God's hands, I think, than anything. But
yeah.
All right. Well, at the end of chapter 17, she does summarize how to provide support the right way. So before we end this part, let's go ahead and summarize that. Kind of recapping, rescuing people from their problems can make them drown in them if we try rescuing too much. When we enable others with our money, words, and actions, you don't foster their independence, you hinder their healing. Truth, people only heal when they're ready to do the work, and you'll be ready for them to do the work before they are. So I think that we've talked about that quite a bit in these last 2 episodes. And the solution is you must step back and allow adults to face and feel the natural consequences of their actions. Instead of rescuing, try offering support with conditions. This approach helps them take responsibility for their own healing and growth and demonstrates your belief in their innate ability to get better and do better. So I really did like this chapter. I think it has a lot of valuable principles.
It does. Y'all talked about sleep training babies in our part 1 when we talked about chapter 16 and that sleep training. And this is almost like adult training.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. At least that's kind of the perspective that we've come at it, because that's just where we're at in life. But but it's kind of adult training.
Yeah. All right, listeners, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any examples you want to share with us or thoughts on these 2 episodes, you can come and find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
All right, I'm a fan of a book, and it's called Safely Home. And it is a soul-stirring story that takes place in present-day China. And it's the story of these 2 Harvard roommates and their reunion 20 years after they graduate. And one is living in America, kind of in this comfortable corporate world, very far from God spiritually. And the other one is living for Christ under really intense persecution in China. And they get reunited, and it's just very timely because of all the persecution of the church. It's really intensified, like in China right now. And, all those Christians in Nigeria are dying every day. Like the persecution has really been stepped up in the world. And this book was written in 2001. So it's really interesting that, I don't know, that I'm reading it now. A book club is reading it right now. But really makes you wonder, like, how you would react in a situation,
Mm-hmm.
where you had to go to church at 2:30 in the morning and hope you weren't seen, and handwrite chapters of your Bible to bring with you, and everybody writes a different chapter so they have the full, like the full copy of the book or
Wow.
whatever, and
Yeah.
then you burn it afterwards, and like, or you memorize it, like it's really, really, like, the research done was really well done to give you a really vivid picture of what these people are experiencing. And I thought it was neat. The royalties from the sale of the book are donated to support the persecuted church worldwide. So
Mm.
Oh, wow.
it's a page turner. It's very good.
Okay. What did you say the name of that was, Julie?
Safely Home. It's by Randy Alcorn.
All right. I'm going to definitely put a link to that in our show notes. That sounds like something very worthwhile reading. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I am a fan of my new walking shoes. I wore out the soles of my last Brooks Glycerin shoes, and I needed a new pair. And
Mhm.
so when I went to the running store here in town, they had the same ones and some new colors. I was going to get white, and I did not. My husband was with me and encouraged the bolder color. And so part of my I'm a fan is the new shoes, but the bigger part is the color that I chose.
Oh, what'd you choose? I'm interested.
Y'all, the color is, oh my gosh, where is it listed? Sherbet, apricot, and pink. It looks like
Ooh. Hey, it's good for UT
Yeah.
fans.
they are bright yellow, actually.
Oh, okay. And the computer that looks orange. Okay.
I know. I will send you the link. Okay, these are wild, and I love them. And Bryce knew that I would love them.
Oh.
He said, "That is so you, Mindy." And I just like have the wildest feet ever. And I decided to just take a chance on a wild color because it's so dark outside.
Uh-huh.
And they literally, you cannot smile when you look at them because they're just
Yeah.
so crazy. So I will send you the link.
Do they glow a little bit at dusk?
I feel like they're so bright.
Everybody sees you coming.
Yes, you cannot miss these. So the joke is, since they're bright yellow, is that I'm walking on sunshine.
Oh, that's cute. And you do love the color yellow, so
They are quite amazing.
okay, that's awesome.
And they feel great. So that's the other
Okay,
thing.
that's good. All right, this week I'm a fan of an author, Ann Tyler. I'm not sure how I happened to find her. I don't know if I read about her on some What to Read Next, but I've read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books of hers in a week. And she has a lot of
Whoa.
books. But I just keep going back into my Libby app after I finish one and take the next one that's ready to borrow. And I put a couple of them on hold. But I'm just really enjoying her story. So far, I think every story I've read takes place in Baltimore. I haven't read if she's from Baltimore, but that seems to be a common thread. The people are always from Baltimore. And it's not the reason I read it, but I always kind of smile to myself because my son and daughter-in-law live in Baltimore. So I'm reading all these books about people that live in Baltimore. But anyways, I've liked her and I've read so many of her books in a week. They're just easy reading, but very interesting, and a little bit of dysfunctional families, which I always like to read about, but they're fictional. But like big families, like family dynamics. I guess I love to read about family dynamics, like the things that happens to families that then bleed over into their adulthood and beyond. Like I find that fascinating. So anyways, seems like all of her books kind of have a common thread of that. So anyways, if you want just some easy reading, try any one of them. There seems to be a plethora of them at the library by Ann Tyler.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, especially if you're not waiting on your Libby app, like to check them out. So that's nice.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you for talking about part 2 of how to support people. I think I learned a lot.
Yeah. Took two weeks to do that one.
2 weeks to do it. Yeah. We still don't know. No, I'm kidding.
All right. And we will talk with you next week.
All right.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Bye, y'all.
bye.
See ya.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.